even though I've already talked a ton about Mario Kart World and the Switch 2 as part of a whole discussion I had from my hands-on impressions at the Dallas Switch 2 event recently, I want to talk even more specifically about Mario Kart World. And who else are you doing with than Paul Gale, the one and only Paul Gale. How are you doing, Paul, today?
I'm doing very well, thank you. Thank you for having me on. I'm so excited to talk with you.
Well, it's great having you here, and I know you're also not just a huge Nintendo fan, a huge Mario Kart fan, and you were at the LA event not that long ago yourself either, and you played across a couple of different gameplay sessions, so I thought it'd be perfect to have you on, and we can give both of our impressions to cover even more of this game, because I know our audience has a lot of questions, both on our, our specific thoughts on the game, how things compare to past Mario Karts, and all of that. Plus, even before we get to the questions I have from them, I just want to talk about this game in general. So since I talked about this game most recently, Paul, let's start off with you. Just how do you feel about Mario Kart World in general, having played it, a couple of times yourself?
Dang, it is a fantastic game. Like, it's one of my top games that I experienced at the Nintendo Switch 2 experience, both on April 11th and April 13th, because I ended up playing it multiple times over 2 days, and my impressions with every play session were so different, so full of variety, and I just love it. So, not only was it one of the best games to just hop into at the show floor because it's pick up and play, no loading, very quick, how hyped I am over it, but like, I think long term this is going to be something that I put in a lot of hours because I can see how big it is. So initial impressions, super positive, easy to jump into, instantly gratifying, and long run I could see the vision of this is going to offer a lot of gameplay. The variety is going to last more than just for quick pick up and play sessions, but I can't stop beaming about every component, graphics, sound design, gameplay, little nuances, rubber bouncing. I mean, we'll talk more about it properly, but initial impressions, very positive. I love it.
It's just so fun, right? I think that's the key takeaway.
Fun.
It's just a lot of fun. Because I'll be honest, after the Mario Kart World Direct, it kind of lost some hype just a little bit because it didn't tell us anything we didn't really already know beyond, a handful of tiny details that barely even mattered. So, I was still really excited for the game. The initial trailer blew me away, but, it brought my hype down just a little bit, right? But going hands-on with it, I'm like, hype's back, hype's restored. This game is so freaking fun because there are things about it in particular that I think you can only really start to fully appreciate, having actually had played it. Because if you just look at it, I think, some of the new elements don't fully come through. In fact, I would even say that some of the elements actually make it look worse than it feels in motion. Like, I know in our gameplay video, a lot of people are commenting on how slow and boring a bridge segment appeared to be, and I don't entirely disagree with that compared to the rest of the race, but I will say playing it in the moment, it didn't feel boring at all, really, right? Like, it wasn't long straightaway, but I had a lot of fun, even on that bridge segment. And also, one thing that kind of annoyed me about the event is those earliest races were all set to 50cc, which is not how I'll be playing or how we'll all be playing it. We'll probably be playing at 150cc, and at least the Knockout Tour was at 100cc. But yeah, did you notice that too, like, having played it yourself, that you picked up on things that you wouldn't have noticed or realized or appreciated just watching the videos?
When you were talking about the Nintendo Switch 2 Mario Kart World specific direct, I was thinking, I saw that footage so different than you because my play experience was here, followed by the direct.
Right.
You went watching my video footage, direct, and then like, oh, you're playing it. So for me, I knew going into it, oh no, this thing is fun. People are going to like it. If I'm seeing a couple of comments online like, oh, is it really that chaotic? Is it really that fresh and big? I was like, yes, it is. The tracks do feel bigger because they are. There is more depth going from front to back. There is more width. And there's a lot more controlled chaos. They didn't just throw in 24 characters and it just breaks the game because there's 24 different things flying at once.
Right.
There are, but the tracks are designed appropriately so to manage the extra chaos. So Nintendo must have spent a lot of time figuring out, kind of like in a Zelda game or a Metroid game, you never get too overpowered to make everything easy. Things progressively get more difficult, so your new power level is significantly more, but not too much. And I felt like Mario Kart is the equivalent of advancing through Super Metroid and getting really powerful because the area is bigger, but you also have more, but it's just enough, right? More so, if that makes sense, A little
bit. It makes some sense. The Metroid comparison is one I wouldn't have gone to, but I respect it.
they gave you so much more,
Yeah.
but not to break it,
I
because they
told I
also
actually
expanded everything else more.
No, I think that's actually well said. You actually used the term there, controlled chaos. I was thinking the exact
Yeah.
same thing just as you were saying it.
Yeah.
Because that was my concern too. Like, is 24 racers too much? Because in Mario Kart 8, I think there are times where 12 racers feels like too much, right? There's like this too much going on, too much chaos, too many items, and it almost feels like you oftentimes have no control over what happens. And I'm sure that's still to a degree, going to be the case here as well, because it's Mario Kart, that's kind of inherent to its nature. But I will say, it didn't feel nearly as chaotic as I expected. In fact, I really loved not just the amount racers added to the track, but what the new track obstacles added to it as well. Like, it just feels like everything is more lively here. Whether you have, whether it's like animals in the savannah running across the racetrack, other traffic, normal traffic racing through the city, or enemies appearing ahead of you, either due to Kamek or just being there, like, Goombas and the shoe jumping Goombas or wherever they were from Mario 3. It's just also lively, but the players in particular, like, what's really neat is, getting back to your concern, or perceived concern from others, of the racetracks being too wide. I see that concern, but racing it doesn't feel like it. In fact, if anything, like, I love how it now gives you more flexibility in how you race. It feels like there's kind of like shortcuts or corner cuts everywhere now. And it's so fun seeing everyone taking these different routes. Like, a path may split. People going off, taking a fork in the road. I saw at one point people are like driving up a dinosaur, and who knows where that took them, right? Or people riding on power lines. Like, it feels like it's just more expansive than ever, but it still feels controlled, because there's like different routes within this within this larger region, but never feels like I don't know, it's even hard to describe. Like, they just really kind of nailed the balance so far, in my early impressions.
It feels like the equivalent of a speedrunner's dream in like a 3D platformer, but this is a speedrunner's dream in literally a racing game where speed is the most important thing, because you want to win. And it's going to take a while to find all of these different paths and entertainment in it, because they all look so different. Having played through multiple play sessions, some of them being in different areas, but some being okay in that same area, I was like, gosh, I just had a completely different experience in this stage, and I'm going to have plenty of those, and that's exciting.
It absolutely
And we played like the tip of the iceberg of the game, We played for half an hour-ish.
Right.
That's nothing compared to how much we're going to put in.
Yeah, I mean, and just to be clear too, these are all early impressions, and it's always possible that maybe I'll end up hating aspects of this game after playing it, a few dozen hours. But I'm not worried about that right now, because all I can say is I had so much fun at this event. Because even though the very core of the game, isn't all that different from other Mario Karts, like when it comes to the moment-to-moment nature of the race and how the items work and all that, like, it's not as dramatically shifted up as Double Dash is in terms of, again, the actual gameplay mechanics. But when it comes to everything surrounding it, that's where it really all changes, with how these broader courses, the point-to-point nature of the gameplay, where it's not just like 3 laps on the same track over and over, and having 24 racers there in general, like, it changes it to a degree that almost feels like Double Dash, just in a whole different way. And as people know, Double Dash is my favorite Mario Kart, and the fact that I'm even making this comparison is really favorable toward Mario Kart World. But I had so much freaking fun playing it here, especially Paul, in Knockout Tour. I don't know, do you agree? Is Knockout Tour where it was at for you too, or what do you think?
It was so cool. I'm glad that you said Knockout Tour you enjoyed so much. One thing to highlight your Double Dash love of it.
Yeah.
I felt, item-wise, the best connection in this game to new, unique items to Double Dash than any other game in the series. Like, this was the biggest evolved step up in feeling like these power-ups are different, and I can't wait to see every little nuance and detail in them. But
real quick, this is a good topic, actually. We'll get back to my question
we'll
in a
get back
second.
to Knockout, I guess.
Like, I will say that, the items, the items that I saw, like, the new ones seem to work really well with the returning ones, of course, and it just added a sense of, again, the liveliness and chaoticness that I was kind of missing from Mario Kart 8. Maybe it's because I've been playing with the same items now for 10 years at this point, right? So it was so nice to have something that felt different. And shout out to Kamek in particular. Kamek is such a brilliant item that helps, slow down the racers up in front without directly punishing them with like a blue shell or red shell or something. And it doesn't affect just the leading racer, but other ones around them as well. Like at one point in my race, I was near the front of the pack, and like a bunch of Goombas appeared and started from Kamek and started like homing in directly on me. It was hilarious. I couldn't even be mad. I'm not even mad. That's amazing, you know? It was so
really
great.
Cool.
And then
Unexpected. You know?
Yeah, it is unexpected, and he's got a ton of different things it seems. So even though it's just one item, he acts in many ways, and that's kind of fun. He's almost multiple items in one. So
smart way of doing it.
Yeah. But so, Knockout Tour.
I loved that. Okay, and Tour. So I had a couple of experiences playing Tour. Also, partially
Knockout
because
Tour,
that is
right?
Knockout Tour, and that's partially because Nintendo, sets up the experience of here you're playing this, then you're playing this. You got a portable experience, you got the Pro Controller one, the Joy-Con one, boom, and the fact that it was a couple of days worth, and just here we go, play longer if you want.
Yeah.
Totally different Knockout Tour days. Because on the second day in particular, I went with my son, so that was also a different cool experience. Hearing his impressions, and like, I could go on and on about, like, let me just repeat to you his thoughts on the game because he loved it too. But just on mine, Knockout Tour was so cool and not easy either. And I couldn't be mad of losing. I think the best I did was 8th, starting out from 24th and going down to 8.
Oh,
and
man.
There was so much pressure, like, oh, come on, and then it doesn't just, okay, cool, warm down time, cool down time, and then 3, 2, 1, go. No, it's just instant. It's just one long race, but it blends together so seamlessly that I loved it, and the adrenaline is just so high. There's not like there's no stop and go. You're just rolling right into it, and that kind of preservation aspect made the whole thing wonderful and very, very different. So it has a lot of what you love from Mario Kart over the years, but probably enough new that if you're not a Mario Kart fan, as long as you're okay with these characters in general, I think open your eyes to expect something new. That I think that might be enough to pull you into why most of us like the series, because this tour mode, World Tour, Knockout Tour, sorry, it's so fun that big highlight for me.
Yeah, and for me, like, I feel like this will probably be the main way I play this game. Because as you were saying, that sense of preservation adds so much to it. Like, initially, I'm like, what's the point of knocking out players along the way? Why not just have them all there for the entire race? But I get it now. It is just so fun having those checkpoints where, like, it's do or die. If you're not in a high enough or low enough position, whatever it is, like, if you're not, if you're in the bottom of the pack, you're in danger of being knocked out. And that adds a consistent threat level that makes it even more thrilling. And I was at that lower limit for a while in my races, and that was freaking me out. Luckily, I don't want to spoil too much in case they haven't watched my gameplay video, but I made it at least to the final pack, and you have to watch the video to see how I ended up doing. But man, that was so fun the entire way, and yeah.
One of the most, in a normal Mario Kart race, one of the most thrilling things is like those last 5 seconds before the finish line, where you're either third or second, and then somebody hits you with a something and you get to first.
Yeah.
Or you're fifth, and within the last 4 seconds, which is a light years in time, and you just go from 5 to 1. You swing, you go past that. That feeling of that excitement of, oh my gosh, I can't believe I won. Wow, I caught that person's, wind speed from behind, and I passed them up, and I won from 5th to 1st in the last 5 seconds. That feeling that you get multiple times in Knockout Tour mode, because in multiple segments, you have to finish in that top 16, that top 14, that top 12, etc. So I think that feeling they've mastered into how do we get that excitement level into a longer gameplay session. That's how you do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's no lull between them. Like, it's just non-stop action, which I love. Like, and it's just constantly thrilling the entire way through. If you pass that checkpoint, hey, you're still in the race, hopefully, but you don't have any time to even like process the semi-victory you have currently, because you're right into the next section, and I love that. The no lag time, no delay, just right back into the action. I mean, not even right back. You've always been in the action, and it's so fun. Exactly. And I have to say too, like, you mentioned something earlier about how something like to the effect of how seamless it is, And, I'm sure over time I'll pick up more on, like, what's an actual race track versus what's, like, a connecting piece. But playing my first Knockout Tour, I could barely even, like, I don't think I even really noticed a distinction between the proper racetracks themselves and the connecting bits, right? And I love that. Like, it all just felt like one completely seamless race. And it's so cool, like, being able to go through these different environments, these different biomes almost. And it just feels like you really are going on this, world tour as part of the Knockout Tour. And it's just so thrilling, so fun, so it's constantly changing things up, which again ties back to what I was saying, which is how lively everything feels. Because not just in terms of like the obstacles and the racers too, but also like how interactive the environment is. Whether it's running into the traffic or the barriers, like you can like bust through if you have a star or mushroom or something. It just there's a sense of liveliness here that especially plays into Knockout Tour that I didn't even know I wanted in Mario Kart.
Mhm. It feels like, would this be good enough of a leap forward had we had a Mario Kart 9 in between? Like, and I'm not talking about, World or Live Circuit. Like, if after Mario Kart 8, Nintendo Switch didn't get 8 Deluxe, but got another one, would this be enough of a step forward over whatever that interim game kind of could have been? And I feel like, this serves the purpose of 2 full Mario Karts later, because it's a whole lot more characters, plenty better in terms of the visual fidelity and the seamlessness, the more items, the new roaming mode, the Knockout Tour mode. So I feel like, this satisfies the wait being justified that it's been 10 years.
Yeah, I had a whole video about how Mario Kart needs to change after 10 years of Mario Kart 8. And this game delivered on it, because I feel like, to your point, had Switch gone its own proper Mario Kart game, if it were in the same vein as Mario Kart Wii, Mario Kart 7, Mario Kart 8, it wouldn't have been, like, I feel like no matter what that game ended up, well, not no matter what, but like if it ended up being in that same kind of ballpark, this game would still be the big jump up we needed. But I think, besides only the possible exception of Double Dash, I don't think I've seen a leap this big in Mario Kart before, especially one that feels like this distinct. Regardless, I'm not even talking track count, character count. I mean, if you go by track count, it's obviously less than Mario Kart 8, but that's not even a fair comparison, because you now have these like these sections in between that connect the tracks, which themselves could almost be their own tracks in a way. But then even the fact that these tracks interlink in different ways, like via Grand Prix or Knockout Tour, it almost makes them feel their own distinct tracks as well. Like, so the amount of like possibilities here is almost endless. It seems like, I don't know if it truly is or not, but yeah, exactly. It's just such a fun feeling, and I can't wait to get hands on this again with actually when it releases.
Definitely.
Yeah. How do you feel about the actual handling though? I mentioned earlier, moment to moment, it's not all that different to a past Mario Kart games when it comes to actual handling, but I do think I kind of undersells it a little bit, because at least for me, this did feel notably different, at least to Mario Kart 8, probably Mario Kart 7 as well. Those felt very similar, and I think that's for me at least for a few different reasons. One, the transformations now, like with the watercraft, which is a big game changer, kind of like that feels very different. Much different than going underwater in past games. Gliding now actually feels like it matters. Like, you can actually use that for shortcuts and stuff. You no longer feel
you're flying.
Constrained. Yeah, you're actually flying, right? Which is huge in this game with the wider courses. You can actually do things. But then on top of that all is the actual handling, the actual racing does feel different, I think. Like, it does, your kart does not handle like it did in Mario Kart 8. And it's hard to describe exactly why that is. I think, well, maybe for one, I was playing as a Wiggler on the bike in Knockout Tour, and I think Inside Out or Inside Drifting may be gone, it seemed like, at least for the vehicle I chose. I don't know if any of the others have it, but in any case, that on top of some of the new mechanics like rail grinding and being able to charge jump, for instance, it does feel different.
Yeah, enough new gameplay elements were put in that it feels very much like Mario Kart. You are racing, you are going from the back of the screen towards the front of the screen,
right?
But control-wise, everything on the input side of things is very fast. I don't know how much you love the new Pro Controller 2 or the Joy-Con 2, but I loved them. I thought those new sticks were awesome.
Yeah.
And everything feeling very ergonomic, very solid. HD Rumble 2 feeling really nice. So, excuse me, in those regards, awesome. But like you said, more sense of control in the carts, maybe because it is a little bit beefier of a polygon experience, so you're more enthralled in it in that capacity, or just because they allowed you to interact with the world in a different way? Like, regardless of what you prefer, Ocarina of Time or Breath of the Wild. Breath of the Wild does give you more tangible nature, or a tangible experience with nature. You're climbing everything, you could interact with everything, you could lift up everything with magnesis and stasis and all that kind of stuff. So it gives you a better sense of this. You are there because you could interact with all of those things and not just, what do you mean I can't climb over that fence post?
Yeah, right.
I should be able to. In Mario Kart, it's like, hey, if I really had these crazy superpowers that these characters could have, why couldn't I jump onto this little thing and grind? Now you can. Why couldn't I go with my glider more than in just this direction?
Right.
Now I can. That wall thing, okay, forget about it being unrealistic to drive like this. That's not the point. You should be able to. And the fact that now you can do all of those things, I just got goosebumps because that's kind of what I'm thinking and getting from this game, is that things that you think that you could do, like you mentioned, if you get a power star power up, you could crash through that little barrier instead of it just being there to block you off. What do you mean I'm traveling at 60 miles per hour and I can't break that? No, with that boost now you can. So like, items have more impact because it's what is going on in the environment. Remember that blue shell moment from when I was playing, and we noticed that the blue shell created that ocean tidal wavy kind of thing in the water?
Yeah.
Instead of it not doing anything, it did do something. Number one, it made the water ripple.
Right.
And then by making the water ripple, it allowed you to catch more speed by jumping off it appropriately so.
Yep.
So that kind of thing is experienced constantly in the game, of that tangible nature and you having the control to work within that nature, that they didn't say, oh, no, you can't touch that. That's off limits. No, go for it. And that freedom is a part of it. Like, they could have called it Mario Kart Freedom.
Yeah, they really
and
could
probably
have.
that could have worked too.
No, that's actually a really good comparison. Like, with Breath of the Wild, it's not just it being a big open world. It's that it opens up the possibilities. I felt so much less constrained here, if constrained at all. Well, except for them having the annoying autopilot thing on, which really kind of limited what I could do in Grand Prix. But Knockout Tour didn't seem to be a factor. And yeah, I just love that. Like, if I wanted to go somewhere, I felt like I could. Now, I didn't fully push that boundary too. I don't know if there really truly were boundaries or not. But I never ran into it if there were. And that's the amazing feeling. Like, I felt like, hey, I've got a mushroom, what can I do with a thing, right? I'm gonna go fly off this, go off into the sand or whatever, find a flight pad, and I can use a flight pad to try and glide as far as I can in any direction. And that feels so good, whereas, like, in Mario Kart, partially as in Mario Kart 8, partially as a factor of playing it for so long, but everyone knows, like, the meta path now, right? Like, people are doing the same shortcuts, and maybe that'll end up being the case in Mario Kart World too, but it felt far less obvious here, and it felt like with the amount of items we had available to us, it just really felt like there was just a lot more possibilities, again, and I don't think either of us probably even fully embraced it. I only was able to, grind on a handful of rails, just because it's a new mechanic, I wasn't used to it yet. I don't know if I even grind on a single wall, so that's a whole other factor I'm going, we'll get used to, and in another way to express, to have skill expression, and might change how we race through these racetracks. So there is more that we haven't even fully tapped into yet, and again, this is within the context that we've played within like a single route or two in like Knockout Tour, right? And that's the aim to discuss all the other ways these tracks can connect. It's just also very fun and exciting and fresh, which is the exact shakeup Mario Kart needed. I mean, to the point that, don't get me wrong, I absolutely want Double Dash mechanics back at some point, but I don't know if that would have been enough by itself to like switch up how the change that Mario Kart needed, and having this open world kind of may be it finally, and it's just so fun. I can't say that enough.
I like how much it surprised me pleasantly in that, sometimes you play a game that has so much, like Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. What do they do next?
Right.
Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. It's got 96 tracks. What do you do next? It's got Link and different Nintendo characters. What do you do next? Leave it to the developers. Leave it to Nintendo being around for 40 years of developing video games across multiple consoles and everything, that they've got ideas left in the tank. And this game, the tank is full. It's overflowing.
Yeah.
And they put a side tank on it, and yeah, you're getting a really cool experience, and this isn't just, oh yeah, more tracks and more racers and better looking. There's a lot to it that's welcoming.
Yeah, absolutely. Real quick, I'm curious at all. Did you miss anti-gravity? It's not here in this game. Did you notice its absence?
No, not really.
Yep.
Like, it was cool. I liked it. It was fun to go on the wall and then to slide in different ways, but it was never like you are driving upside down the entire track so that you're getting that. Like, the
Right.
track would always morph with you. So
Yeah.
the
I
fact that
felt
it
like
didn't change up too much.
that's
right
exactly
here, I'm
it. Like, what did it?
now I am actually going sideways on the wall.
Yeah,
And-
it actually seems like it matters more here with their pseudo
Yeah.
anti-gravity rather than the actual anti-gravity. Yeah, I always felt like the anti-gravity never really changed that much about the gameplay. It just led more to the crazy track designs. But I felt like they lost
Right.
nothing in Mario Kart World. I actually might prefer this. Prefer not having is my point, you know?
Likewise with going underwater, because going underwater before was just a different visual of,
Right.
now I'm still driving like this,
Yep.
but just I'm on the bottom of the floor. Actually going on the waves, maybe visually you're still seeing the environment that you already were seeing while driving on asphalt. So that's the same, but the gameplay experience could be different because now you're going on waves, and that could add a little bit of a different impact than just going on underneath. So I think the water element is fine, the anti-gravity thing is fine, the gliding, or more like flying almost, is improved.
Yeah.
I'd say, yeah, no regrets of, oh, they
No.
didn't put that back in there. I love it.
I love all those transformations. Like, I can't say that enough, because I thought all the things you mentioned from Mario Kart 8, it didn't feel like they changed the game really at all. And gliding to me almost felt pointless in that game, because everyone's in the same gliding section, in the same, by and large, with the same limited, range of movement you have. Whereas here, it's like you can basically do whatever you want when you're gliding, and it actually feels like more impactful. Same thing for on the water. Being on the water is way more fun than being underwater, because it actually feels different. You got the dynamic nature of the waves, which almost feels like Wave Race Light, which, by the way, I still want to run Wave Race at some point. But for now,
Yeah, I know.
this is fun. Especially with the dynamic nature of it, like with the blue shells or bombs setting off the tidal waves you mentioned. Super cool. So, Paul, we've talked a lot about Mario Kart World so far, and we have even more questions from our audience that they want to have answered, at least to the best of our ability. But before we get to them, are there any final things you want to mention about Mario Kart World that we haven't had a chance to bring up yet?
Ironically, I think, yeah, the biggest thing that you, see first, the game's graphics. I think we had so much fun talking about the gameplay, which honestly speaks to Nintendo's nature, that we kind of didn't talk about just the visuals and how much more we liked it, at least me, than Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. So, yeah, graphics would be something I would want to touch on a little bit of.
Well, I think let's do it then. We're already doing it. Yeah, so this, for me at least, this game is like, it's subtly better than Mario Kart 8, I'd say. Mario Kart 8 still looks good somehow after 10 years, right? And I still remember when I first saw this game during the initial tease, the 10-second tease or whatever, I'm like, is that just Mario Kart 8 again? Is that a new track from the game? But actually playing it in person, seeing it on the TV, the vibrancy and just the resolution and how much is going on, you do start to appreciate like what this game is doing that the Switch, I assume, just couldn't. There's so much going on. I love the more cartoonish nature of the characters, like the way they're animated. The fact there's double of them now, on top of like the amount of insanity happening around you, and the fact that you can see entire racetracks in the distance, like Double Dash, but now of course fully realized, which is amazing. So if you look at like on the screenshot per screenshot basis, like, I don't think the difference is that obvious, but in motion, that you can really start to appreciate the graphical improvement. And not just graphics, just like the amount of kinetic energy happening around you that this game is now capable of, that the Switch hardware, I assume, wasn't.
Right. What this game isn't, when I was picturing, what do I want Mario Kart to look like next, was, do you remember the trailer for Rosalina and Luma in Super Smash Brothers for Wii U?
Yeah, the one that I thought was gonna be Kirby Air Ride 2 back then.
Right. When we saw that footage of Donkey Kong coming around the corner and Mario Kart looking at him and all the racers and Bowser and Princess Peach there and stuff, I was like, oh my gosh. if Mario Kart eventually looks like that, that is the peak visual fidelity of how I would like the series to go.
Right.
Whether it happens next time or 2 or 3 times down the road. But if you look at that, that looked like it probably would just be a Mario Kart game that looked a lot better.
Right.
That's not the visual leap in just pure polygon fidelity that we got here. However, there is so much attention to detail in the rubber. I was looking at my footage from those couple of days that I got to play, and I'm paying attention to the wheels and how they're turning around. And like when you see a car's wheels and they have like a little bit of insignia on the outer rim,
Yeah.
you can see it start to spin a little bit faster and faster. Like this game has that kind of detail. It has that little bit of extra luster, and maybe it's because it's running at an even higher frame rate or just in 4K with more clarity to allow that kind of thing, or the developers took the time of like, let's let every little nuance, let's let every little detail kind of shine. The water and the different level of water effects from higher and closer to the surface and slowly grading to get darker towards the end. I was noticing that. The great contrast between sky being different shades of blue and the land and the different shades of, tan. And I could go on and on about like all of these other little things that, yeah, I did notice then, but like watching my footage, these hammers that are being thrown, meanwhile, all these fireballs are throwing and they all collide with the ground a little bit different. So their interactivity between items is also something to appreciate, all while, like you said, so many characters on the track. The track is bigger. There's a greater sense of depth and scope from foreground to background, and it all paints a much prettier moving picture, despite, once again, kind of like you said, still shot by shot, you'd be like, yeah, I could see Mario's face looking a little bit better, but no, it's all of the extra depth that once you start playing it, you really, really appreciate it. It's a lot prettier of a game.
Yeah, it's something that I think doesn't immediately stand out, but it's something that you, as you touched on, like you kind of, almost unconsciously appreciate. Like, it looks better. I don't think it's going to necessarily blow anyone away visually. Like, I don't think, for its time, I don't think it's as good looking per se as Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, for when it launched. But that's not to undermine what this game is. I feel like it's not just aiming for, you compared to the Smash trailer earlier. And yeah, like, it's clear they're not aiming, that wasn't even a goal for them. They're not even aiming for that level of fidelity, whether or not they could or not. But in any case, like, what they, I think, really are focusing on is the scope of the world, some of the more fun details within it, as you commented on, and just the amount of, like, kinetic stuff happening. Like, we have dinosaurs crossing the entire racetrack now, and, I mean, to be fair, I'm sure you could have done that on Switch 2 on Switch 1, rather, without a priority. But my point is that is their priority here, is making this a really lively environment. And, of course, we have the time of day changes now, which I think you may have been touching on. Although, I will say, Paul, that's one of my slight drawbacks to the game, very minor, this is nitpicking at this point, is the way the sun set for me, like, during the race. It just felt like it was just, like, transitioning, or, like, doing a crossfade from, like, one JPEG to another, I'm like, I wish they had done it a little bit better, like Breath of the Wild, which feels more organic. Not a big concern. And, hey, at least it is an active sunset, unlike Sunset Wilds in Mario Kart 8, which has no active sunset, which is the one thing it was supposed to, so, based on the GBA version. In any case, yes, it's a great-looking game, love the animations, and, yeah, I it's going to be fun to see it on my own TV at home in 4K, so, or whatever resolution it's running at. In any case...
Would you agree that in portable mode, when you're playing, that screen, I mean, I didn't have any problems.
No.
I brought my Nintendo Switch OLED model, and I was saying side by side between this screen and this screen, the clarity of this one, the brightness of this one, I'm like, I'm no complaints whatsoever in their vivid LCD, their 8-inch display. It's a beautiful diagonal giant screen that's also in 1080p, so it's sharper in those regards, and stunning screen in my opinion.
No, it looks fabulous no matter how you play the game. Like, I don't think there's been a lot of some blowback against it being an LCD display. It's absolutely overblown from seeing it. Now, I'm not saying an OLED wouldn't necessarily be better, but it wouldn't be... It's not like we're going back to the Switch 1 screen here. Like, this looks fantastic. To the point that I'll bet you a lot of people would mistake it as an OLED. Like, it looks so good, so vibrant. Not concerned at all, especially with it being, higher resolution now, 1080p versus 720p of, any Switch 1 screen, besides it being docked, of course. All right, well, let's go ahead and move on to, and that's not even accounting for the 120 frames per second, which Mario Kart doesn't support, but it can support it on the
Right.
handheld too. Anyways, we got some questions from the audience. I want to start off with our YouTube member question. So, if our YouTube member gets you all kinds of extra benefits, like the little cool icons next to your name, and being able to ask questions like this, and we'll make sure we pay attention to. So, first up, and other tons of benefits too. Check it out if you haven't already via the membership tab. The Pivot 5005 has a few questions, so let's try to get through this quickly. First up, how did the HD Rumble 2 feel? Were there notable effects when driving on different terrain, or was it so subtle that you barely noticed? So, what did you notice? What did you pick up on, Paul? Did you notice much about it?
I can't say that, yes, I noticed different terrain, like, oh, the asphalt clearly felt different than the dirt or the water, but I did notice more movement in the right side of the controller and the left side of the controller as I was accelerating or being hit by weapons or colliding with different folks.
So you felt like it was imbalancing you almost. You felt the impacts in a way, like via whichever controller
I
was
did
shaking.
feel more of an impact, but
Yeah.
I think that is improved.
That's cool.
On
Yeah,
Mario Kart 8.
that's awesome. I will say I didn't notice much, which may be a good thing. Maybe I was so immersed I didn't even notice. The time I noticed it the most was when I was boosting. You feel like that vibration. It feels like it's kind of like ramping up, I think, and that's cool. Beyond that, it reminded me very similar of my memory of Mario Kart 8, to the point where I just don't even notice it. And that might be because the game is just so intense, I just don't have the brain power to process what my controllers are doing, shaking-wise. Like, it didn't stand out to me in the sense that, Drag Drive does, where it's really well implemented. Not that this isn't, it just doesn't have that one-to-one motion that stands out more, so... Yeah.
Underneath the wheels, tuck, 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 tuck.
Exactly. Kind of like
Really cool.
WarioWare Twisted on the Game Boy Advance had that great vibration too. In any case, so yeah, it's good. I'm sure it's better than 8. I just didn't notice it that much. Next from them, did you feel races were more frantic with the addition of 24 players at once, or was it around the normal amount of Mario Kart chaos we've had at half the player count?
Properly ramped up chaos. It
Yeah.
was magnified in the size of the tracks, magnified in the size of the characters. Obviously, then the weapons go up, but things are so balanced that it's just a new level of awesome entertainment that is heightened, but not blown out of proportion to be too crazy or just
Yeah.
comically insane. It wasn't comically insane. It was, beautiful insanity.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's impossible. It's too early to say for sure, right? Like, I kind of feeling it different after a week or two. But based on my early experience with it, I if anything, it maybe felt a little less chaotic than 8, in the sense that I didn't feel like I was being pummeled by items every few seconds, which can sometimes happen in 8, and maybe it can happen here too. But I think, I was concerned about this, like with there being double the racers, it'll just be complete insanity. But I think with the broader racetracks, the amount of options you have when racing now, it really kind of diffuses, is that the word I'm looking for, the action across like multiple pathways, and it makes it feel just really good in general. And also, I haven't tested this, but I also felt like I was less punished when I was being hit this time. I don't know if you recover quicker or whatever it may be, but I didn't feel as annoyed. And maybe it's because I was having, a ton of fun. In any case, right now I'm not worried. Of course, that could change down the line, but I think they did a good job so far with the balance of everything. Finally, the final question is, I love Mario Kart 8, but after 11 non-stop years, I am ready to move on. Does this feel anything like Mario Kart 8, where I pick up the controller and think, this feels way too familiar, or does it feel like a truly fresh experience?
A truly fresh experience, yet within the franchise that you've come to know and love. So you're gonna push A to go, and you're gonna go from the back of the screen towards the front, and you're gonna swirl around the track and hit enemies. But fresh in that it is enough of a leap forward, especially given that it's 11 years, that I think this could satisfy that it might not have just been enough to make it a sequel, but if there was this potential sequel 5 years ago, this might even have been a sequel to that sequel, with how much more it gave in the grand scope and the amount of different fun amongst the familiar fun. I think it's worth the wait.
Yeah, so far I definitely agree. Like, the open world style of gameplay really is a game changer, and then you combine that with the new vehicle, or the new transformations you have into the boat, and the how the glider is now more open too now, essentially, which really kind of changes the overall feel of it. It makes it actually feel like it matters now. Yeah, I feel like this probably is... I don't think you're going to think it's too familiar feeling to Mario Kart 8, at least again at first. I think they did a great job. Because the only other way, like, the thing they really did here that they changed, Double Dash, what it did was it kind of changed the specific gameplay as it relates to your cart, whereas in this game it's more based around everything surrounding your cart. So there was really two directions they could have gone in, and they went with the world design in this one, and that's a different direction than they've ever done before. They've never done anything quite like this. So in that sense, I think, yeah, absolutely, it completely earns that fresh feeling moniker, and as of now, I'm not worried at all. This is one who's a huge Double Dash fan, and I would obviously love for those mechanics to come back too. Maybe in Mario Kart World too, but for now, I'm content. Yeah. Oh, you still got the E3 shirt? That's the E3 shirt.
I was saving that for when you brought up.
That's crazy.
I knew you were gonna bring up Double Dash.
I'm so jealous.
In this conversation.
That's from E3 2003. I played that. You were there at the same E3.
Oh, of course.
Dude, we probably were in line at the same point, but I played that demo so many times. I collected literally like 20 of those shirts. Maybe not that quite many. I had a ton of them, to the point where I was like using them as rags to clean up things, but I had too many of them. No. But now I ran out. I have no more shirts, Paul, so I'm so jealous. That's awesome. I can't believe that. All right, moving on. We have a question from Antonio. Do you still wear that shirt, by the way? It's in good condition, I see.
Pretty good. I'm very choosy of how often I wear it these days, since it's 22 years old.
Yeah, exactly. That's impressive. No holes or anything. Antonio, another question from them. Do you even drift, bro? Yes, I drift. Look at my gameplay. I try my best. Jeez. Jokes aside, you see potential in remapping some buttons from Mario Kart World to the new back buttons on the Pro Controller. As always, thanks for the amazing content. What do you think, Paul?
Obviously, I didn't try it, but I could see myself giving it a shot if I want to. If I notice that, someone came up with a good idea for that, that's a little bit of help. So I haven't thought of what would I put there yet, but maybe.
Well, the thing is, like, the controls in Mario Kart are so basic, they barely really use any of the buttons, right? And so the only ones I could possibly imagine myself mapping to them would be the L and R ones, which is item and drift respectively, or hop, I guess. And so
maybe reverse.
Yeah, I guess. I guess in reverse maybe could work.
If I didn't want to move my thumb from A to B to reverse, and no, because that's a slight input delay, and I wanted to use GL. I don't know.
The one I think actually would have better potential, maybe for me at least, would be looking behind you, having that 180 view. I think that could be really useful on one of the pedals. That we don't have to take your thumb off.
The world's so much bigger now that maybe it's good.
Exactly. Next up, it's Chib. Sorry if I mispronounced that. Asks, I have two questions. Do you think that Mario Kart World will sell more than Mario Kart 8 Deluxe? So let's answer that first. Paul, what do you think?
The quick answer is no, but I do have a way that it might be yes. So no overall.
Wait, how's your it might be yes if you buy a ton yourself?
No, because we do know that, hey, part of the SKU of the launch is going to be included with this system, Mario Kart World, from the get-go. But Nintendo said this would be a limited time. How limited? If it's for the first year, and Nintendo Switch 2 sells 22.5 million systems in the first year, and like 14 of them are instantly, boom, Mario Kart ones, plus the other people wanting to buy it separately, and you already have like 18 million copies sold in the first year, and then from there, a game that sells every year continuously, and eventually going back to being a permanent game bundle, then I can see this thing's going to be an 80 million seller. But the safer bet is no, I guess.
My thought is simply that I don't think the Switch 2 has any chance of outselling Switch 1, and based on that alone, I don't think Mario Kart World can catch up, especially at the $80 price point. If that ends up, this bundle doesn't end up being a permanent thing, I think that will hamper its sales. So I think it'll sell extremely well.
It was permanent though. If it was to be a permanent bundle, always available, I would say yes. I would change
if it were, it would have a chance, maybe. But I still think that's a big ask to outsell Mario Kart World or Mario Kart 8, which is their best-selling game of all time. So it's a standalone game. Steven with not super chat, like another YouTube member asks. The previous person had a question too. Real quick, do you think crossover characters like Link, Inklings, or Villagers would be added as DLC?
Definitely.
Yeah.
I'm picturing whole freaking new worlds, even.
Continents.
Smaller worlds.
Yep.
DLC of Zelda's domain, and it's not as big as the whole Mario Kart World section, but like a little continent of it, a little country's
Yeah,
worth.
Congo
And it's got
Jungle
a few things.
or something, or Kong Island, DK
I
Island, you
love
know.
it.
So
Love the
yeah,
thought.
exactly. Steven asks, I have a question. Do you believe that Red Koopa Paratrooper will be a playable character once again, either as an unlockable or as DLC in the Mario Kart World game, after being absent from the Mario Kart roster for so long, as he had his premiere, I think, his only appearance in Mario Kart Double Dash. So do you think there's a chance Red Koopa Troopa or Paratroopa could come back?
They got a cow in the game. Yeah, they're gonna have anything in the
It's always
game.
a chance. You're right. Freaking cow. Love
Yes.
the cow. So good. Yeah, I mean, I think it's possible, you know? Especially if they're going to keep supporting this game, which I hope they do. Yeah, I think it could happen. Alan Meg Delano asks, do you think we'll get any more DLC characters that we haven't seen before, like Kirby or maybe even Samus? Just imagine in the Octolinks too. So we already covered DLC characters, but could we see more beyond the ones we've already seen?
Yes.
Yeah, I think so. I think it makes a lot of sense. Samus would be a lot of fun, as you mentioned.
So cool.
Yeah, I mean, having more Kong characters would be great. So I think there's a really good chance.
Transitioning between different Nintendo characters' domains would be like going to Super Nintendo World and Donkey Kong Land over in Universal Orlando or in Japan, and just like going between Mario's world and Donkey Kong's world, but just now imagining going from Mario and then crossing through some kind of ink and sludge and going into like Splatoon. Like, oh, that's just a cool
that'd be
thought.
so good.
We're speculating, but
yeah, I mean, that'd be great. I would love that. And Kirby is such a natural fit. You know, that could be good synergy too with Kirby Air Riders coming up. So, anyways, we have another question from Cloudfin asking, how did the speaker sound in handheld mode? Were you even able to hear it when you were there? I wasn't really paying attention. If you watch my gameplay video, maybe you can hear it through that. But did you notice anything, Paul?
I could pick it up, I could hear it, but there's a lot of noise in the room, so I was able to hear the music, which sounds good, but not able to fully appreciate it because there were no headphones or anything. But the speakers, good.
Yeah,
it was like a big old studio, you know.
Yeah, it was a loud environment, so it's hard for us to really gauge like how powerful they are or not. But the fact if Paul can hear anything over the loud noise of that event, that tells you something. Matthias asks, does drifting feel any different? And if so, how so?
I was equally good or not great at drifting as I usually am. Power slide, boom, boom, like felt good, felt responsive. I don't know any real gameplay difference in that yet.
Yeah, the thing is, I don't know about the drifting itself, but the overall gameplay or the handling does feel different. It's hard to tell you exactly why. Part of it might be because it may seem that inside drifting is gone for the bike, so I was playing on a bike as a wiggler, and it could just be that specific bike. I don't know for sure. In any case, so regardless of what vehicle I was playing, it does feel different. It has like a looser type feel, a la Double Dash. It doesn't feel exactly like Double Dash, but it does remind me a little bit of that more chaotic, a slightly more out of control feeling, which I quite like myself. But again, it's hard to say exactly why it feels different. But everything does feel like a little looser, like you're not as... It doesn't feel like you're as glued to the track as you were in Mario Kart 8. Like, it feels a little bit bouncier, and I very much like that, so...
Definitely bouncy, in general, the whole riding experience.
Yeah. Especially with you being able to hop around, freely now with your charge jump, too, so... and when you get hit by items, it's hilarious. Sometimes you'll end up upside down, it's great. Pedro asks, do the tracks feel too easy and wide? That's kind of the impression I got from the few vids I've seen. And do you feel like the interconnected world limits the creativity of the tracks? What do you think, Paul?
Definitely not too easy, because then everybody would be first place. There's a reason why, hey, you tried hard and you somehow ended up in 16th? What? Right. Or 8th? Huh? No, not too wide. It's appropriately strategically with so much variety that probably there is no one path that is twice as fast as any other path. But there are paths with incremental little improvements here and there. But overall, there's so much variety that, not too easy and quite varied, and not just varied for the giggles of it, but just I know there's reasons why you want to explore. I didn't think it was too easy.
Yeah, I mean, to your general point about the different pathways, like the width of the tracks actually allows for more options now, which I appreciate. Like, there were tons of corner cuts when I had a mushroom now, which really felt like I was kind of like paving my own route, which is a lot of fun. So I'm not too worried. I would say the only part where it could be a concern is in the latter most parts of the Knockout Tour when it's only a handful of racers left, and maybe that could be where it's starts feeling a little bit too wide, but otherwise I didn't notice it being an issue. I mean, I didn't notice it being an issue at all, but I'm just trying to speculate. But I do recall, in that final portion of the race at least, like, that's when it actually wasn't as chaotic as, the previous parts because there were just fewer racers. And then that's when you start to feel the width of the raceway a little bit more. Otherwise, I thought it was, I actually liked what it added. But again, these are early impressions, so that could change. Lucas asks, after you jump onto a wall, do you need to do anything to stay on the wall, or is it basically anti-gravity you can activate on any wall? I didn't have a chance to play around with it too much, if even at all. Did you notice anything, Paul, or...?
I noticed myself hopping on the wall and hopping off, but I couldn't tell if I initiated it or if it was because it was the end of the wall segment, so I don't know how I got off at the moment.
Yeah, I don't either. I think that if I'm guessing based... it probably works the same as the rails, where when you're on a rail, you don't hold anything, you just bounce off of it, you jump off of it, when you're grinding a rail. So I'm pretty sure that's how the wall would work as well, but again, I can't say for sure. Edward asks, did it feel weird jumping from Mario Kart 8 Deluxe to World because you're so used to the controls in it? Let me answer this one real quick. I played our tournament yesterday, our weekly Mario Kart 8 tournament, and yeah, it felt weird going back to 8 at first. I adjusted after a couple races, but definitely felt weird. Jack Attack asks, does Mario Kart World feel somewhat like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, or does it feel completely different with every single mechanic? Does Mario Kart World dethrone your favorite Mario Kart game? Oh my god, that's way too early to say. Right now, it would be in competition with Double Dash for me, but otherwise, does it feel somewhat like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, or does it feel completely different? I would say it's between the two. It doesn't feel completely different, because the moment-to-moment gameplay of your actual card, as I said earlier, does feel similar, but the way the track design and world works does make it feel pretty different at the same time. And even Double Dash, like, even that's not completely different, it's still Mario Kart,
right.
So...
different enough that it's fun, but familiar enough that, like, hey, this is
coming home
to an IP, to a series that I enjoyed for decades,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Mark asks, how does grinding and wall jumping feel? It looks awkward in the trailers. So I will, again, I only pulled off a handful of times actually like grinding a rail. I will say that it did feel a little trickier than I expected. Like, I tried going on rail, and it might have been because they had the annoying autopilot turned on, so maybe that's why I was having issues. But it did feel a little weird to me getting onto the walls, but I don't want to judge it too much yet, but I barely had a chance to play on it, and I like what it adds to the racetracks, but it was a little tricky. I don't know if I'd say it was awkward, but I can see where that would come from. But again, I think it's a learning curve. But Paul, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah. I'm just not skilled enough yet from a handful of tries to be like,
exactly.
I mastered this rail thing yet. No, it was, I did it, like you said, a couple of times myself. It was cool, but I don't know the full benefits and all of that yet. I'm sure we'll find out.
Kind of related, Purple Breed asks, how does executing the jump dodge boost / rail grind / wall hop come off? Is it snaking 2.0? Here's the thing. Again, we weren't able to play around with the wall part itself too much, but the grinding rails we did to some degree. And I don't think, no matter what, I don't think it can be compared to snaking 2.0. But snaking, kind of felt like an exploit of how the gameplay just works at its core, and this is an intrinsic part of the gameplay that's intended, so I'm not worried about that. So, do you have any further thoughts on that, Paul? Or should we move on to more questions since we gotta go?
Move on. I think you touched it.
Real quick, they also ask if you got to do any free roam. How deep was it? You can go wherever you want, from what I could tell, without any limit. I only played a little bit of it, but I could drive in any direction, it seems. So,
before one of our races, when we were waiting for the knockout tour mode,
right.
there was a plenty of free roaming in that time because it was a little bit longer of a wait from my previous day, and you just started going everywhere. I'm like, this is a big map. This is a big world. So I didn't get to do like, enter the photo mode and do all of those kind of things that we saw in the trailer, or the direct. But a little bit of the openness, and like you said, you could go anywhere anyways. But it was pretty sweet.
All right, we gotta wrap it up here in a moment, but I knew you have a time limit. Is there any music that stood out to you? A couple people asked about the music. Anything that stood out that you recall hearing, or could you not hear really much of anything?
I could hear the music, but I couldn't appreciate the full soundtrack yet.
Okay.
Even watching my old gameplay footage, I'm like, oh yeah. That snowy terrain, I did like the jingle in it.
Yeah. I'm sure the music's great. But
this nighttime locale was nice too.
Dibadab
we have a couple minutes.
Oh, you do have a couple minutes? Are you sure?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, all right. Just want to make sure. All right, sorry.
For another several.
All right, sounds good. So we'll get a few more questions in here, everyone. So, all right, Dibadab asks, and we've covered this a little bit. Does the gliding feel different compared to previous titles? And does driving on water actually feel like you're driving on water, or is it just the same as driving on land, but now you're in water?
Since land doesn't move and the water does have movement under it from the impact of other races and blue shells going off, water does feel different. It's too early to say like, oh, does the drifting actually feel entirely different? But in general, different enough that it's like, that's cool. I would rather be on top of the water now than underneath the ocean,
the water.
float on just the floor.
I fully agree. Like, it's not, it feels a little bit more dynamic, which I love, like a wave race light, where you have the waves, and you can trick off them, especially when you have, like, blue shells and bombs blowing up that creates, a kind of tidal wave type thing. That's really cool, so that's inherently more fun than going underwater, which felt the exact same to me, but, like, slower in 8. And then gliding. So, it's weird, is gliding, moment to moment, like, it feels similar, right? Like, you still have limited momentum, you can choose your direction, but within the context of the world, it feels so much better for a few reasons. One, I didn't encounter any scenarios where like I was locked into a straight pathway like you often are in 8, where I could, once I enter a gliding section, I could glide wherever I wanted to, and that's a total game changer. It actually makes it feel like you can do, like you have control, and that gliding actually has a benefit now.
Yeah, more like flying almost.
Yeah,
a little bit.
Exactly. I really love what that added. Darren asked a good question that we haven't talked about too much. How does it feel to drive the tracks in Grand Prix mode, given that 2/3 of the tracks roughly are made up, are made up of like driving track to track? They look very straight, so they're a little boring. I'm curious to get your take on this, Paul, because I did end up on like a super freaking long bridge in my Grand Prix, and we were set to 50cc for that, which made it feel even longer than it would on 100 or 150cc. And I will say, I had fun. It's not as boring as it looked in the video. But, there was a point I'm like, okay, I'm over this bridge at this point. Like, I'm ready to move on, But what was your take on those moments in the Grand Prix?
I never got bored of the transition phases. Maybe because there were just so many other fun people experiencing it for the first time, and we're all experimenting with, can we go on the left side of the bridge and go all the way up? Oh, what if I just hop on top of the back of this car? Right. So there was enough there that phase was still fun, but I imagine for most people that might be their favorite part of it. Yeah, nor was it mine, but it was still cool.
Exactly. Yeah, let me be clear. I wasn't bored of it either. Yeah, it just wasn't my favorite part, I'd say. But there's so much going on even on that bridge, whether you could take the shortcuts up the railings, for instance, what I tried to do. I made up one, at least in my video. Then there's tons of traffic, and they're like, throwing bullet bills at you and other things. Like, there's so much going on that even that feels unique. So I still had fun despite it being, mostly a straightaway. Let's see here. We had a good question from Gregory who asks, did you find yourself trying to hold an item behind you with ZL only accidentally fire it by mistake? Yes!
Yeah. Used to that.
I do prefer not having to hold it behind me now, so that's better, but I definitely made the mistake of accidentally firing it, when I was just intending, from habit of playing Mario Kart 8. Alright, I think, let's see, I'm just looking through any other questions here. There's quite a few of them, but, trying to see if there's anything else we haven't really addressed. Here's a final one we can end on. Asker of Y asks, does this game feel like it can last as long as Mario Kart 8?
Short answer, yes.
Yeah.
I think it can.
I agree.
We don't know what his plan is with DLC and stuff, but there is so much opportunity when it comes to that, seeing how much effort if they start doing worlds and different characters, different themes, and several races per, like, this easily gonna last a decade.
Yeah, I agree. I think it easily lasts as long as 8. Well, maybe not easily, but I think it could, especially if they are consistent with DLC. But I think the open world really does change things. So, I mean, if 8 can last as long as it did, I think World can as well. Because it feels more different to 8 than 8 felt to 7. So yeah, I think actually World can easily do it. Alright, Paul, I think that's most of the big questions here. I apologize to anyone we couldn't get to, but unfortunately we don't have infinite time, unlike the infinite speed limit that we saw in Mario Kart World, which is hilarious. Anyways, Paul, if people want to hear more from you or see more of your content, where can they follow you at?
Over on YouTube and on X, or Twitter if you prefer to call it that, I am at Paul Gale Network, and I go over video game sales and reviews and unboxings and different martial arts tutorial stuff, and mostly, yeah, video games and exercise kind of things combined into my YouTube and X.
All right, well, Well, it's so
Thank
fun
you.
to talk with you, Paul, about Mario Kart World. If you want to follow Paul, you can find the links in the description below. Otherwise, real quick, Paul, what's your hype at now for this game, 1 to 10, after playing it yourself?
I can't say anything other than a 10. I am so stoked. This is the perfect choice for Nintendo to have as a launch game. I'm at a 10 for Mario Kart World.
I'm pretty close. I'd say I'm probably at 9.5 in hype. Had there been the story mode, I'd definitely be at 10. But still, I had so much fun. It really helped restore the hype after, you know, the disappointing direct, which really didn't tell us much more new about the game. But for me playing, I'm like, okay, I get it. This game's a ton of fun, and I can't wait. So, with that, everyone, thank you so much for watching. Consider subscribing if you haven't already to catch more Switch 2 and Mario Kart videos from us. Otherwise, that's it. So we'll catch you later. Bye, everyone.